I still remember the morning I first saw that mansion, tall, cold, and quiet, standing at the edge of the city like a forgotten memory. Its glass windows shimmered in the sunlight, but somehow it looked lifeless. I held my small travel bag close, my palms sweating, and whispered to myself, "It's just a job, Kithrine. Don't be nervous." I had lost my previous job 2 weeks earlier, and this one felt like my last chance. The agency told me I'd be working for a wealthy businessman named Sanjy and his son. They also warned me that no maid ever stays long. I didn't ask why. I needed money, not stories. When the tall iron gates opened, I felt like I was walking into another world. The air smelled faintly of roses and silence. A guard led me through the marble entrance hall, where everything gleamed. The floors, the chandelier, even the walls. It was too perfect, too polished, like someone was trying to erase all signs of life. Then I saw him, Sanjy. He stood by the grand piano, dressed in a dark suit even though it was just morning. His face was calm but distant, like a man who'd forgotten how to smile. His sharp eyes studied me briefly. "You're the new maid?" he asked, voice low, controlled. "Yes, sir," I said, clutching my bag tighter. "Kithrine." He gave a faint nod. "You'll start immediately. My son needs supervision." That word, supervision, sounded strange. Not care, not company, supervision. Before I could ask anything, he turned away and said, "Follow me." He led me through endless hallways until we reached a sunlit room at the end of a long corridor. The door was half open and I heard faint humming, a child's voice. Inside by the window sat a little boy with soft brown hair, his head tilted slightly as if listening to something only he could hear. He held a small toy car, moving it slowly across the windowsill. "Ryan," Sanjy said softly, "this is Kithrine. She'll be helping around the house." The boy turned his face toward me, eyes wide open but unseeing. That's when I realized. His pupils were pale gray, the color of storm clouds. He was blind. "Hello, Ryan," I said gently, kneeling beside him. "That's a nice car you have there." He smiled faintly, his fingers tracing the toy. "It's red," he said. I blinked. "How do you know that?" "My mom told me before she left," he said quietly. Sanjy's face hardened. "That's enough, Ryan. It's time for your medicine." Ryan didn't respond. His small shoulders tightened, and I could feel the air change, heavy, tense. Sanjy turned to me. "You'll find everything you need in the kitchen. The boy takes his medicine twice a day. No exceptions." And just like that, he left. The sound of his footsteps faded, leaving behind a silence that felt almost alive. I turned back to Ryan, who was now tracing the sunlight with his fingers. "Does the light feel warm?" I asked softly. He nodded. "It feels like her hugs," he whispered. My heart broke a little. Whoever her was, she wasn't there anymore. Over the next few days, I settled into the mansion's rhythm. Every corner gleamed, but the place still felt haunted. Not by ghosts, but by memories. The staff spoke in hushed tones, always careful when Mr. Sanjy passed by. Ryan barely spoke to anyone. But with me, he began to open up. He'd sit near the window listening to the birds. Sometimes he'd ask me strange questions. "Miss Kithrine, what does blue look like?" I'd smile. "It's like the sky after rain, soft and endless." He'd giggle. "And red? Like your car, warm, bright, and brave." He'd smile every time I described colors, like he could see them in his mind. But something about the boy unsettled me. Not him, the way he acted after taking his medicine. Every evening, after I gave him those small white pills, his cheerful voice would fade. He'd grow quiet, his head drooping as if the light inside him had dimmed. I tried asking the house nurse once, but she only said, "It's prescribed by Mr. Sanjy's personal doctor. Don't question it." Still, something didn't feel right. One night, I couldn't sleep. The mansion was too silent. From my room, I heard faint murmurs, voices coming from Sanjy's study down the hall. I shouldn't have listened, but I did. "She doesn't need to know," a man's voice said. "She's just the maid," Sanjy replied coldly. "She'll do as told." "And the boy?" There was a pause. Then Sanjy's voice, softer now. "He'll never see again. It's better this way." I froze. Never see again? I wanted to believe I'd misheard. Maybe they meant something else. But when I peeked through the slightly open door, I saw Sanjy standing with a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring at a framed photo of a woman, beautiful, smiling, holding baby Ryan. His hand trembled as he whispered, "I'm sorry, Mia." Mia, Ryan's mother. I stepped back quietly before he could notice me. My heart was racing. I didn't understand what was happening, but something inside me screamed that Ryan's blindness wasn't natural. And Sanjy knew it. The next morning, when I went to wake Ryan, I found him sitting up in bed, humming softly. "Good morning," I said with a smile. "How did you sleep?" He turned toward my voice, smiling. "I had a dream. I saw the sun, Miss Kithrine. It was bright and warm. I saw colors, too." I froze, my heart pounding. "You saw—" He nodded, his face glowing. "But when I woke up, it was gone." Before I could ask more, Sanjy appeared at the door, holding the small white bottle of pills. "Time for medicine," he said sharply. Ryan's smile faded instantly. I could see fear flicker across his face. "Please, not now," he whispered. Sanjy's tone turned icy. "Now, Ryan." He took the pill obediently, swallowing it with water. Within minutes, his head drooped, his shoulders relaxed, and his voice fell silent again. I stood there, frozen. That's when I noticed it. Sanjy's eyes watching me closely, as if he knew I'd seen something I wasn't supposed to. He gave a faint, tight smile. "Don't worry, Miss Kithrine. Some things are better left unseen." And then he walked away. That night, as I sat alone in my room, I couldn't shake off his words. Better left unseen. Why would a father not want his child to see? Why would a medicine make a boy weaker instead of stronger? I pulled out the small white bottle I'd secretly taken from the kitchen earlier. The label had no brand name, just initials, RP Labs, and beneath it, for restricted use only. I felt a chill run down my spine. I didn't know what was happening in this mansion, but I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just about a blind child. It was about a secret, one that Sanjy was desperate to hide, and I, foolishly or bravely, had just stepped right into the middle of it. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ryan's pale face after he took those pills, the way the light faded from his smile, as if something inside him shut down. And those words Sanjy said kept echoing in my mind. Some things are better left unseen. By morning, I had made up my mind. I had to know the truth. The mansion was always quiet at dawn, with only the faint ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall and the smell of freshly brewed coffee drifting from the kitchen. I tiptoed past the servants' quarters, clutching the small white bottle I'd hidden in my apron pocket. When I entered the kitchen, Martha, the cook, was already chopping vegetables. She looked up at me, eyes tired but kind. "You're up early again, Kithrine," she said. "Couldn't sleep?" I forced a smile. "Just wanted to start breakfast early for Ryan," she nodded. "Sweet boy, that one." "Poor thing. It's a tragedy what happened to him." I froze. "What happened to him?" I tried to sound casual. "You mean his blindness?" Martha hesitated, her knife stopping midair. "Mr. Sanjy doesn't like us talking about it. But between you and me, the boy wasn't born that way." My stomach dropped. "What?" She lowered her voice. "He could see, Kithrine. Up until he was 5. Then one night there was an accident, or so they said. After that, he couldn't see a thing, I whispered. An accident? Martha nodded slowly. That's the story Mr. Sanjy told everyone. But I've been here long enough to know when a story's hiding something. I felt my heart racing. So Ryan wasn't born blind. I thanked Martha quietly and hurried out before anyone else could see me. My hands were shaking as I walked toward Ryan's room. When I entered, he was sitting cross-legged on his bed, humming to himself. His toy car lay beside him, and sunlight poured in through the curtains. "Good morning, sunshine," I said softly. He smiled in my direction. "Miss Kithrine, can we go to the garden today? I like when the wind touches my face." I nodded. "Of course, Ryan." As I helped him get dressed, I noticed faint marks on his wrist. Small, round bruises, like from a grip that was too tight. My heart tightened. "Ryan," I said gently, "how did you get these?" He hesitated, then whispered, "Sometimes the doctor holds me too hard when he gives me my medicine." I stopped breathing. "Doctor? You mean Dr. Patel?" He shook his head. "No, not him. The other one. The one who comes at night." My body went cold. "Someone comes at night?" He nodded slowly. "I can't see him, but I can smell his perfume. It smells like metal and rain." I realized what he was describing, the sterile smell of a hospital. I didn't ask more. I didn't want to scare him, but inside, I knew. Something terrible was happening here. That afternoon, when Sanjy left for his office, I took the chance to explore the mansion properly. There were rooms I had never been allowed to enter. One of them, at the end of the west corridor, always locked. The door had a golden handle and a security pad. A red light blinked above it. I'd seen Sanjy go in there twice, always late at night, carrying a black leather file. Curiosity burned through me. I leaned closer, trying to hear any sound from inside. Nothing. I tried the handle. It didn't move. Just as I was about to leave, I noticed something odd. A small piece of tape covering the lower part of the door frame. It looked new. I pulled it off gently, and the door creaked open an inch. My heart pounded as I slipped inside. The room was dark, cold, and smelled faintly of chemicals. My eyes adjusted slowly, and what I saw made my breath catch. There were medical machines everywhere. Monitors, syringes, strange glass vials with clear liquid, and a large photograph of a woman on the wall. The same woman from Sanjy's study, Mia. There were also files stacked neatly on a table. I picked one up, Ryan S., Subject 02. Subject? My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages. There were charts of brain scans, notes written in sharp handwriting, retinal nerve inhibition effective. Subject's vision suppressed successfully. Further doses may cause emotional numbness. My mouth went dry. Suppressed vision? This wasn't medicine. It was experimentation. Someone was keeping Ryan blind, intentionally. Before I could process it, I heard footsteps outside. My heart leapt into my throat. I quickly shoved the file back and hid behind a curtain near the machines. The door opened. It was Sanjy. He walked in slowly, phone pressed to his ear. "Yes, doctor," he said quietly. "She's adjusting fine. The maid suspects nothing." Yet, I froze. He was talking about me. He paused. "No, the child hasn't regained any sight. Continue the formula. We can't risk." "What happened before?" There was a silence. Then his voice softened. "I promised Mia I'd protect him, even if it means he never sees again." He ended the call and stood still for a moment, staring at the photograph of his late wife. His voice broke as he whispered, "You didn't leave me a choice." I covered my mouth, holding back a gasp. I didn't know what was worse, that he was part of it, or that he believed he was protecting his son by keeping him blind. When he finally left, I slipped out of the room and ran straight to my quarters. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. My mind was a storm of questions. Why would a father do that? What happened to Mia? And what did he mean by what happened before? I knew I couldn't confront him yet. I needed proof. So that night, when everyone was asleep, I crept into the kitchen again. I pulled out the medicine bottle and poured a few drops of the liquid into a glass of water. It smelled faintly of alcohol and something metallic. I took a deep breath and whispered, "If this is poison, then God forgive me." I dipped my finger into the mixture and tasted it. A bitter, burning sensation spread across my tongue, and within seconds my vision blurred. The world around me went dim, gray, fuzzy, like someone had turned off the lights inside my head. I panicked, gripping the counter for balance. Then slowly it faded. My sight returned. I realized what that meant. The medicine wasn't curing anything. It was causing blindness. Tears burned my eyes as I stumbled back to Ryan's room. He was asleep, peaceful, unaware of the darkness forced upon him. I knelt beside him and whispered, "I promise you, Ryan, I'll find out the truth, and I'll make sure you see the light again." But as I stood up, I noticed something strange on his nightstand, a small, broken photograph frame. The glass was cracked, but inside was a picture of a woman holding baby Ryan. Behind it, hidden under the backing, was a folded note. With trembling fingers, I pulled it out and unfolded it. The handwriting was delicate, feminine. "If you're reading this, it means they've told you lies. Trust no one in this house, not even him." I stared at the letter, heart pounding. Mia Ryan's mother had left a warning. I clutched the note to my chest, realizing this wasn't just a secret, it was a crime, and now I was part of it. The note from Mia trembled in my hand for a long time. "Trust no one in this house. Not even him!" Those words haunted me. They changed everything. For days, I couldn't look at Sanjy without hearing them echo in my mind. Every polite smile he gave, every calm instruction he spoke, it all felt like a mask hiding something darker, and yet there was a sadness in his eyes that confused me. A man protecting a secret that broke him, or a man who destroyed everything to keep it. That night, I sat by the window in my room, staring at the glowing lights of the city beyond the trees. The wind carried faint whispers, almost like a woman's voice. Or maybe it was just my imagination. Who was Mia really? Everyone in the mansion spoke her name softly, like she was both loved and feared. Some said she died suddenly. Others whispered she had taken her own life. But if that note was real, if she'd written it herself, then maybe Mia never truly left. The next morning, I went to Ryan's room early. He was sitting by the window again, tracing sunlight with his fingers. His small face looked peaceful. "Miss Kithrine," he said softly, "do you believe people can still see us after they die?" The question startled me. "Why do you ask that?" "Because I hear her sometimes," he said, tilting his head. "At night, Mommy's voice. She sings to me when I can't sleep." A chill ran down my spine. "What does she sing?" He smiled faintly. "A lullaby about the moon. Daddy doesn't like it. He says I should forget it." My throat tightened. "Can you hum it for me?" Ryan began humming, a soft, haunting tune that filled the air like a ghost's whisper. I didn't recognize the melody, but it sent shivers down my arms. Something about that song felt familiar. Later that day, I was dusting the library when I found an old wooden box on the top shelf. It was carved with the initials M.S., Mia Sanjy. The lock had rusted, so I pried it open carefully. Inside were old photographs, a few letters, and a small silver locket. I opened the locket. Inside was a picture of baby Ryan on one side, and on the other, Mia smiling beside Sanjy. They looked happy. In love. So what went wrong? I began reading the letters. Most were sweet notes between husband and wife. But one stood out. It was dated just months before Mia's death. "Sanjy, I can't support this anymore. He's too young. The experiments are dangerous. If you continue, I'll take Ryan away. I'd rather live poor and safe than rich and blind." My heart stopped. Experiments Mia knew. She'd tried to stop it. I didn't even realize I was crying until a tear hit the paper. My hands shook as I whispered, "Oh, Mia, what did he do?" That's when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, and there he was. Sanjy stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. His eyes flicked to the open box in my hands. "What are you doing with that?" he asked quietly, though his voice carried the weight of a storm. I froze. "I was just cleaning." "I found this by accident." He stepped closer. That box was not meant for you." His tone wasn't angry. It was tired, broken, like he'd run out of the strength to hide his pain. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I didn't mean to intrude. But please," I found one of Mia's letters. "What did she mean about experiments?" His jaw tightened. For a moment I thought he would shout. Instead, he turned away, running a hand through his hair. "You wouldn't understand," he muttered. "You see only the surface. Then show me the truth," I pleaded. "Because right now, all I see is a little boy suffering, and a father letting it happen." He turned sharply, his voice trembling. "You think I want this? You think I enjoy watching my son live in darkness? Then why keep him blind?" I cried. "Why poison him with that medicine?" His face went pale. He took a step forward, lowering his voice. "You tasted it," I swallowed hard. "Yes, and I know what it does." For a long moment, silence filled the room, heavy, suffocating. Then he whispered, "It's not poison. It's protection," I frowned. "Protection? From what?" He didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the window, staring into the distance. His reflection in the glass looked haunted. "She wanted to take him away," he said quietly. "Mia. She thought love was enough to keep him safe, but she didn't know what was coming." "What was coming?" I asked, my voice trembling. He turned to me, eyes filled with something between fear and guilt. "There are people who would do anything to control what he has inside him." "Inside him?" "Yes," he whispered. "Ryan's not an ordinary child." The doctors found something in his eyes. A rare condition, they called it. But it wasn't a disease, it was potential. I didn't understand. Potential for what? He took a deep breath. He could see things. Not just the world around him, but beyond it. He could describe places he'd never been, people he'd never met. At first we thought it was imagination. Then one night, he described a plane crash before it happened. I stepped back. "You're saying your son could see the future?" Sanjy nodded slowly. "And that's why they came. Scientists. Investors. They wanted to study him, use him. Mia begged me to stop them. But they threatened us. When she tried to escape with Ryan..." His voice cracked. "They killed her. The world spun around me. I couldn't breathe. Killed her." He turned away, wiping his face. "I made a deal. To save Ryan. They let me keep him, as long as I kept him blind. They said if he couldn't see them." I felt tears blur my vision. "So you've been drugging your son to protect him from the same people who killed his mother?" He nodded, his voice breaking. "Every dose I give him kills me inside, but it keeps him alive." I didn't know what to say. My anger melted into heartbreak. For the first time, I saw the pain behind his coldness. But another thought struck me. If those people were still out there, then Ryan was still in danger. "Who are they?" I asked. He shook his head. "You don't want to know." "Yes, I do," I insisted. "If I'm going to protect Ryan, I need to know who I'm protecting him from." He looked at me then, really looked at me. "You care for him, don't you?" I nodded. "He deserves to see the world again." A faint, broken smile touched his lips. "That's what Mia used to say." He turned to the box and picked up the silver locket. "She believed love could fight monsters. I used to think she was naive. Now I think she was right, and I was the coward." He placed the locket in my hand. "Keep this safe, and if anything happens to me, take Ryan and run." That night I couldn't stop shaking. Everything I thought I knew had turned upside down. Ryan's blindness wasn't just cruelty, it was a shield. And Mia's death wasn't an accident. It was murder. I went to Ryan's room one last time before bed. He was asleep, breathing softly, holding his red toy car. I sat beside him and whispered, "Your mother loved you, Ryan. And your father. He loves you too in his broken way." He stirred in his sleep, murmuring, "Mommy?" Tears filled my eyes. "Shh, it's okay. I'm here." The moonlight spilled through the window, touching his face like a blessing. And in that moment, I made another silent promise. Whatever it took, I would end this. I would find the people who killed Mia. And I would bring back the light for Ryan, even if it meant burning down the walls of that mansion to do it. And now, I was part of it. After that night, I couldn't look at the mansion the same way again. Every corner, every whisper, every creak of the floorboards felt like it was hiding something. or someone. I knew now that the danger wasn't just in the past. It was still here, watching, listening, waiting. For days, Sanjy and I barely spoke. There was an unspoken understanding between us that we were bound by a secret neither of us could share. But something in him had changed. He looked lighter. Maybe because for the first time he wasn't carrying the truth alone. He'd started spending more time with Ryan too, sitting beside him during breakfast, reading to him in the evenings. The boy glowed with happiness whenever he heard his father's voice. Sometimes I would catch Sanjy watching him with quiet regret, like a man finally realizing what he'd lost. But the peace didn't last long. One evening, as I was folding laundry in the servants' quarters, I noticed someone standing near the end of the hallway, Thomas, the mansion's security chief. He was tall, broad-shouldered, always polite. Maybe too polite. He smiled when he saw me. "Working late again, Miss Kithrine?" I returned a cautious smile. "Just finishing up." His eyes flicked toward the door of Sanjy's study. "You've grown close to the family, haven't you?" The question made me uneasy. "I just do my job." He nodded slowly, stepping closer. "Good, because sometimes people who get too close learn things they shouldn't." My heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" He smiled faintly, but his eyes stayed cold. "Nothing, just be careful where you wander at night." And then he walked away. I stood there frozen, my pulse pounding. He knew something. Or maybe he was the something I should be afraid of. Later that night, I checked on Ryan. He was asleep, clutching his toy car. On his nightstand, the silver locket from Mia glimmered faintly in the moonlight. I'd placed it there to comfort him. As I adjusted his blanket, I noticed something odd. A small, blinking light under the table. I bent down and saw it. A tiny black device no bigger than a coin, with a faint red dot pulsing on it. A bug. A listening device. My stomach turned cold. Someone was recording us. I quickly turned it off and slipped it into my apron. Then I went straight to Sanjy's study. He looked up from his desk as I burst in. "Kithrine? What's wrong?" I shut the door behind me and held out the device. "This was in Ryan's room." His eyes widened. He snatched it from my hand and examined it under the lamp. His face paled. "This isn't mine." "Then whose is it?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just picked up his phone, typed something quickly, then smashed the bug with a paperweight. "They've found us," he whispered. "Who?" He looked at me, his voice shaking. "The ones who made the formula. The ones who killed Mia." That night was chaos. Sanjy ordered the guards to lock down the property. But something felt wrong. Too quiet. Too calm. Around midnight, I heard footsteps outside my room. Again, slow, careful. I grabbed a lamp and pressed myself against the wall. The footsteps stopped right outside my door. Then, a soft, "Knock, Miss Kithrine," a man's voice whispered. "It's Thomas." "Open up." My grip tightened around the lamp. "What do you want?" "Mr. Sanjy needs you. Now. He's asking for you in the study." Something in his tone didn't feel right. Too calm, too smooth. I hesitated. "Tell him I'll be there in a minute." Silence. Then quietly he said, "You shouldn't have gone into the West Wing. My blood ran cold." The doorknob turned slowly. I panicked. I grabbed the chair from my desk and jammed it under the handle. The door rattled violently as he tried to push it open. "Kithrine!" he shouted. "You don't know what you're doing." I ran to the window, pulled the latch, and climbed out onto the small balcony. The wind hit my face sharp and cold. Below, the garden stretched out in silver moonlight. I heard the door crack behind me. Without thinking, I jumped. The fall wasn't far. I landed on the grass, pain shooting up my legs. I forced myself up and ran. The mansion's backyard led to the old greenhouse, abandoned, overgrown, and filled with dust. I slipped inside and hid behind the broken fountain. My heart hammered so loud I thought they could hear it from outside. Through the glass, I saw flashlights moving near the trees. Voices shouted my name. "Find her!" Thomas's voice. Cold and commanding, I bit my lip to stop from crying. What had I gotten myself into? Then I heard another voice behind me, soft, trembling. "Miss Kithrine?" I turned. It was Ryan. My heart dropped. "Ryan, what are you doing here?" He held his toy car tight to his chest. I heard shouting. Daddy told me to hide, but I couldn't find him. I pulled him close, whispering, "Shh, it's okay. We'll be fine." But I didn't believe it. We hid in the greenhouse until the noise outside faded. I looked down at Ryan, his face calm, his blind eyes reflecting the faint moonlight. He whispered, "Mommy says we should go to the cellar." I froze. "What?" she told me, he said simply. "Just now." My throat tightened. "Ryan, your mother isn't—" He interrupted softly. "She is. She talks to me when I'm scared." A chill ran down my spine. Whether it was his imagination or something else, I couldn't ignore it. "Where's the cellar?" I asked. He pointed toward the east side of the mansion. "Under Daddy's office." I didn't know how he could know that, but I followed his lead. The cellar door was hidden behind a heavy bookshelf in Sanjy's study. I found the small lever near the floor and pulled it. The shelf slid open with a low hum, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling into darkness. I carried Ryan down carefully, one step at a time. The air grew colder. At the bottom was a large underground room, filled with old furniture, boxes, and a small metal cabinet in the corner. Ryan let go of my hand and walked toward it. As if drawn by something, he placed his small palm on the cabinet door and whispered, "She was here." I knelt beside him, my hands trembling, and opened the cabinet. Inside were Mia's medical files, photos, and one last letter. "If anything happens to me, promise me you'll tell him the truth. He's stronger than they think. The light inside him can't be stolen, only hidden. Find the red key. It will show you the way." I frowned. "Red key?" Before I could think more, I heard footsteps above us, heavy and fast. Then the sound of something breaking. "Thomas." "Hide," I whispered, pulling Ryan behind a pile of boxes. The cellar door opened. Flashlight beams cut through the dark. Thomas's voice echoed down the stairs. "Kithrine, come out! You don't know what you're protecting." I held my breath. Ryan clung to my arm, shaking. He stepped closer, sweeping the light across the room, and stopped inches away from us. Then suddenly, a gunshot. Thomas jerked backward, the flashlight dropping to the floor. Behind him stood Sanjy, his face pale, his hand trembling as he held the gun. "Stay away from my family," Sanjy said, voice breaking. Thomas collapsed, the light flickering out. Silence filled the cellar. Sanjy turned to me, his eyes full of regret. "You shouldn't have been part of this." I stood slowly, my voice shaking. "You saved us." He looked at Ryan, who was still clutching my hand. "I don't think I did," he whispered. "They'll send more." I glanced at the files, then at the boy. "Then we run," he nodded, his jaw tightening. At dawn, that night none of us slept. The mansion, once cold and lifeless, now felt like a cage on fire. I sat beside Ryan, watching him sleep, wondering how a child so small could carry a secret that powerful, and how much longer we could keep it safe. Because somewhere out there, the people who took Mia's life were still searching, and the red key she'd mentioned was still missing. Dawn came quietly, too quietly. The mansion that once echoed with footsteps, chatter, and orders now stood still, like it was holding its breath. The air felt heavy with the memory of what had happened in the cellar. I still couldn't erase the image of Thomas collapsing on the cold floor, Sanjy's trembling hands gripping the gun, the silence that followed. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was the realization that everything was changing, and none of us could go back. Sanjy was in his study when I found him. He'd cleared the desk, burning files one by one in the fireplace. The flames reflected in his eyes, turning them into molten amber. "They'll come for me," he said without looking up. "They always do when something valuable slips out of their hands." I swallowed hard. "You mean Ryan?" He nodded. And the formula, the word felt heavy between us. I had seen the documents in Mia's cabinet. The secret experiment, the failed trials, the notes signed only with initials. "What does the red key mean?" I asked. Mia mentioned it in her letter. He hesitated, then reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small flash drive, red, metallic, glinting in the dim light. "This," he said. "It's not a key to a door. It's a key to truth," I frowned. What's on it? He looked up at me, his expression haunted. Everything. The real cause of Ryan's blindness. And the reason Mia died, we didn't have time to talk further. Outside, I heard the distant growl of engines, cars pulling up the driveway. Sanjy grabbed my hand. They're here. We ran through the hallway, Ryan clinging to my other hand. His small fingers squeezed mine tightly. He didn't ask questions. He just trusted me completely. The back exit led through the servants' quarters, down a narrow corridor that opened near the stables. But when we reached it, we froze. 2 black SUVs blocked the gate. Men in dark suits stepped out, their faces hidden behind sunglasses despite the dawn light. "They found us," I whispered. Sanjy clenched his jaw. "Then we go through the woods." The forest behind the mansion was dense and cold, filled with morning fog. Branches cracked under our feet as we moved quickly, trying not to look back. Ryan walked silently between us, holding the small locket with his mother's picture close to his chest. "Daddy," he whispered. "Are they bad men?" "Yes," Sanjy said softly. "But they won't hurt you. I promise." For a moment, I almost believed him. Then, a gunshot rang out. The echo tore through the trees. Birds scattered into the sky. "Run!" Sanjy shouted. We sprinted deeper into the forest. I could hear them chasing us, branches breaking, footsteps closing in. My lungs burned, my heart pounded, but I didn't stop. We reached an old cabin at the edge of the property, and one I'd seen from the window before, forgotten under vines and dust. Sanjy kicked the door open, and we slipped inside. The place smelled of damp wood and thyme. There was a broken lantern, a dusty bed, and an old desk with papers scattered across it. Sanjy slammed the door shut and pushed a chair under the handle. "They won't stop," I said, catching my breath. "What do they want?" He turned to me, eyes dark. "Control. Mia's formula wasn't just medicine. It could restore damaged vision, maybe even enhance it. She tested it first. On our son." I felt the ground shift beneath me. "Ryan's blindness wasn't natural," he said bitterly. "It was a reaction. Her formula worked for a moment, then everything went wrong. The company forced her to sign a silence agreement. When she refused, they silenced her." I stared at Ryan, who sat quietly near the window, listening even though he couldn't see us. His face was calm, almost too calm. "Does he know?" I whispered. "He feels it," Sanjy said. "He feels everything." Before I could respond, Ryan stood up and walked toward us. He reached out his hand. "Mommy says the red key will fix everything," he said. Sanjy knelt in front of him, tears filling his eyes. "Ryan, what do you mean?" "She says we have to go where the sun meets the glass." I frowned. "The sun meets the glass?" Ryan nodded, pointing outside. There, through the cracked window, I saw the faint reflection of the morning sun hitting the top of the mansion's greenhouse. The same place where Ryan and I had hidden the night before. Sanjy looked at me. "That's impossible." "The greenhouse, maybe it's where she left something," I said. "Something connected to the formula." He hesitated, then nodded. "We'll go. But once we find it, we leave this country. Forever." We waited until the noise outside faded, then slipped out the back door and moved through the forest's edge until the mansion came back into view. Smoke still rose faintly from the fireplace inside, evidence of our desperate escape. We reached the greenhouse just as the sun broke through the fog. The light poured through the shattered glass, scattering into 1,000 golden shards. Ryan walked ahead, unafraid, guided by something unseen. He stopped near the fountain and pointed. "There!" We knelt beside him. Beneath the cracked stone base, half buried in dirt, was a small metal box, locked with a red seal identical to the flash drive. Sanjy used his pocket knife to pry it open. Inside were vials of clear liquid, old notes, and one last message, written in Mia's delicate handwriting. "Forgive me. What blinded our son wasn't failure. It was interference. They changed my formula. They wanted soldiers, not healing. The red key will unlock the real data. Trust only the light. Mia." Tears blurred my vision. I looked at Sanjy, who was shaking, his hands trembling as he held the note. She didn't fail, I whispered. She was betrayed. He nodded slowly. And now, we can finish what she started. Before we could say another word, I heard engines again. Louder this time. Closer. They've found us, I said. Sanjy clutched the box to his chest and looked at me, determination burning through the fear. Then we end this. The roar of the engines grew louder as black SUVs surrounded the mansion. We had only minutes, maybe less. Sanjy handed me the metal box and whispered, If I don't make it, promise me you'll protect him. I gripped the box tightly. You will make it. We all will. But deep down, I wasn't sure. Ryan stood between us, holding the small locket in one hand and the red flash drive in the other. The sunlight hit his face through the broken glass, and for a brief second I saw something in his unseeing eyes. A glimmer, faint but real. Mommy says don't be scared, he murmured. And then the gunfire started. Bullets shattered the glass roof. Shards rained down like frozen tears. We ducked behind the old fountain as men in black surrounded the greenhouse, shouting commands. Sanjy loaded the gun he'd taken from Thomas. They won't stop until they have the formula. I clutched the box, my heart pounding. Then let's give them something else. He looked at me, confused, but I was already moving. I crawled toward the far corner of the greenhouse where an old generator sat, half broken but still wired. I opened the panel and jammed the red flash drive into the power port of the laptop beside it. The screen flickered to life. MIA Vision Project. Access code verified. The drive wasn't just a key to files. It was an activation device. I scrolled through the encrypted folders, eyes scanning lines of code and video logs, Mia speaking to the camera, her voice shaking. If this reaches Sanjy, it means they found me. The cure works, but only if the subject's brain isn't altered. They blinded Ryan to test control, not sight. The cure is in his blood, I gasped. Oh my God. Sanjy crawled beside me, his face pale. They blinded him on purpose? I nodded, trembling. To suppress his neural response. He's the key, Sanjy. Ryan is the formula. Before he could reply, the doors burst open. A tall man in a gray coat stepped in. Cold eyes, calm smile. I recognized him from the photos in Mia's files. Dr. Kruger, the head scientist who'd led the experiment. Well, he said, glancing around. You saved me the trouble of searching. Sanjy aimed his gun. Stay back, Kruger chuckled. You think you can protect what doesn't belong to you? That child's DNA is our property. My stomach turned. He's not your experiment. Kruger's gaze flicked to Ryan. Oh, but he is. The perfect subject. The first step toward evolution. He raised his hand, and two men stepped forward, armed. Take the boy. I didn't think. I lunged at the generator and hit upload. The screen flashed. Transmitting files to public network. Kruger's expression darkened. What did you do? I shouted. The truth won't stay buried anymore. Gunfire exploded. Sanjy fired back, hitting one of the guards. The other aimed at him, but before he could shoot, Ryan screamed, a sharp, piercing cry that made the entire greenhouse vibrate. The sunlight through the glass grew brighter, unnaturally bright. I looked at Ryan. His eyes, once clouded white, now glowed faint gold. The air shimmered around him. And for the first time, he truly looked, right at me, Miss Kithrine. He whispered. I can see you. Tears spilled down my cheeks. Ryan, you can see? He nodded, trembling. Mommy said the light would come back. Kruger stared in shock. Impossible. The serum! Sanjy fired another shot, grazing Kruger's shoulder. You stole his sight, but you couldn't steal his soul. Kruger staggered back, clutching his wound, as the screen behind us flashed. Upload complete. All of Mia's files, formulas, and recordings sent to the public. The truth was free. Police sirens echoed in the distance. Someone must have seen the smoke or heard the shots. Kruger realized it was over. He dropped his weapon, sneering. You've doomed yourselves. The world will tear this apart. Sanjy walked forward, pointing the gun. Maybe. But at least it won't be hidden anymore. Kruger's cold smile faded as he stepped back, right into the shattered glass. He slipped, fell, and hit the ground hard. By the time the sirens reached the gates, he was gone. Hours later, I stood in the garden with Ryan as the police questioned Sanjy nearby. The air smelled of smoke and dew. The mansion, once a place of secrets, was now surrounded by flashing lights and reporters shouting for answers. Ryan reached for my hand, his small fingers curling around mine. "Is it over?" I smiled softly. "Almost." He looked up at the morning sky, blinking at the light. "It's beautiful," he whispered, and for the first time he could see it. Days turned into weeks. The files Mia left behind went viral across the world, exposing one of the largest medical conspiracies in history. The company collapsed. Trials began. Justice, slow but certain, moved forward. Sanjy sold the mansion and moved to a small coastal town where no one knew his name. He opened a small clinic using Mia's true formula to help children who had lost their sight. As for me, I stayed. I couldn't leave them, not after everything we'd survived together. Sometimes when the sun set over the sea, I'd sit with Ryan on the porch. He'd rest his head on my shoulder, describing the colors he saw. Gold, crimson, violet, as if every shade was a miracle, and every time I'd think of Mia, of her courage, her sacrifice, her light. One evening, Ryan handed me the old locket. "Mommy says it's yours now." I opened it. Inside was her photo, smiling, alive, and beneath it, a small engraving I hadn't noticed before. "The light lives in those who see with love." I couldn't hold back the tears, because in that moment I finally understood. Mia's real legacy wasn't her formula, it was her son, and the love that had healed what science could not. That night, as the waves whispered against the shore and Ryan's laughter echoed through the air, I closed my eyes and whispered to the wind, "Rest now, Mia. He can see the world you dreamed of." And somewhere in the distance, I swear I heard her voice. Soft, peaceful, full of light. "Thank you, Kithrine." The end.